Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. And gee whiz, not such a great weekend of footy for us, but nevertheless we're here and we're going to talk all about it. Thanks to everyone who's joining us on YouTube and Discord and Facebook and Twitter, of course. Don't forget, if you want to get on the live studio audience tonight, just stick up your hand in the virtual chat there if you're in the live studio, and we'll get you on. I'm sure there's plenty of people that want to have something to say, and one person I know who will have something to say is Macca. How you going, mate?
Yeah, not bad, mate. A little bit tired, as I said before, but no, looking forward to tonight. I'm sure we'll have a bit of fun.
Yeah, we might have a bit of fun, I think. Oh, shit. Never mind. Look, as I said, thanks to everyone who's joining us tonight. It should be a big cast. I think there's plenty to talk about. But Macca, I've got to say, as I have a sip on my medicinal scotch here.
Yes.
We almost don't have to do this podcast. This podcast is basically redundant. Do you know why?
You'll tell me.
Because every freaking podcast we've done, Geelong v Adelaide, over the last 5 years, we have said the same bloody thing. And so I'm just going to refer people to our previous Geelong podcast. And if you listen to those and listen to the chat and all the rest of it, then you'll get the same result, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, well, seriously. Far out.
It is good.
It's just...
You can't argue with it. Actually, it was pathetic, wasn't it? Bloody pathetic. I mean,
well, it was very disappointing, mate. Very disappointing. We'll get into it as we go on. But
you look at the stats. You've dominated the stats, and yet you're not dominating the game. It tells you how inefficient we were, how hopeless we were, how uncoordinated we were, how poorly selected we were, how poorly placed we were by the coach. There was so much to talk about, and when I get warmed up, I'll get stuck into the rest of them.
Well, the saddest part about the weekend for me, Mac, was that I wasn't able to do my goal kicking challenge because I've got a bit of a back injury, and I'm refuting the rumours that the back injury could be as a result of having a kick of the footy last week.
If I was to be Sherlock Holmes to get my magnifying glass out, I think I'd come to the conclusion that was it. I think that was it.
Come on, mate. No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, I'm not so sure, Fiend. I'm not so sure.
Come on, mate. You got to have a bit more confidence in me than that.
Well, I know. I thought you limped back after succeeding.
Look, I'm not going to confirm or deny. It could well have been as a result of that, but I'm not going to say anything. All I'm going to say is that nevertheless. We'll do it during the week. We'll do it during the week.
The hammy feels a bit better.
No, the hammies are fine. See, the problem with my back is that it's the stronger of the two regions of my body. So my hammies will often pull my back out of alignment, and that's what happens. So nevertheless, we'll do it during the week, and that'll be fine. And a shout out to the people, Macca. I'll call them people. I'll call them supporters. Pete might be in here. I'm not sure. But we got a bit of I got a bit of a touch up on the Here We Crow podcast last week, Macca. And I've thrown down the gauntlet, and I want them to come out and see if they're any better than what I am, to be honest with you.
Oh, they had a crack at your kicking for goal, did they?
Yeah, first of all, they said I shouldn't have taken the discount. Second of all, they said I should have had someone on the mark. And meanwhile, Kate and all the rest of it are giving me a hard time. And when I challenged them, they said, we'll get what's-his-face from Strathalbyn down, who obviously plays football. It's like, no, he wasn't giving me shit. It was the people on the podcast that were giving me shit. So they can come down and have a crack. But I actually think that it might be worthwhile having a bit of a kick-off at some point with the other Crows podcast. I've had a look at our mates on Here We Crow, and they don't scare me at all, Mac. They don't scare me at all, mate. Don't scare me.
Well, all I can say is be afraid.
And as for the people on the Crowjack, well, less said about that, but no one scares me on that freaking podcast either. Excellent podcast, as they all are. We love the Crows podcast community, all of them. We do, but come on, if you're going to start throwing your weight around like that, then we're gonna have some words. Anyway, Macca, I believe that it's time for your 15 minutes of fame. So let's get into the weekend's results, shall we?
Yeah, I'll get through them as quick as I can.
Good man.
So
we can
rip into Nick's and others.
Well, if you'd shut up, then I'll introduce the first game, which was the Saints v Collingwood on Thursday night. And Collingwood just going about as well as we are at the moment, going down by 15 points to the Saints, 14-10-94, St Kilda, 12-7-79, Collingwood.
Yeah, well, the Saints came marching in and they left the Pies 0-3. And they dominated the rucks, the midfield, and Miller Wanganeen, Jesus, is he one we missed in the draft? When we took another dud?
Well, no, because you got to understand that our club's philosophy is you don't take anyone who could potentially play through the middle of the ground, right?
Oh, right. Okay.
So, if you do take them, which we have a few, if you do take them, you certainly don't play them there, right? Under any circumstances. So, potentially you could say we missed out on him, but I don't know. He's probably better off where he is. Absolute gun.
The guy, he's building. He's just probably maybe his third year. He's going to be a star, and he was. And but the Pies look very ordinary indeed. Nick Dacos was held to a moderate score, tally of possessions by his account. And
yes,
I said after round 2, the Pies will not win the flag this year, and I'm calling it again. They won't win. There's nothing there, mate.
It's too early. Too early, Mac.
I think the coach deserves a medal for getting a premiership out of this particular side because when you look at all the individuals. They got some handy ones, but there's a lot of ordinary players there too.
Oh, nah. I'm not writing them off yet. Sorry, mate. Anyway, let's move on. Okay. And North. How many times? How long have you been doing this podcast with me?
Oh, a couple of
days. So, after a bright start by North Melbourne, the Dockers ran all over them in the end. 15-12-102. To North 11-10-76, Dockers by 26 in the end. Now it's you.
Yeah, right. North Melbourne, they opened up absolutely brilliantly, Fiend, and they actually led by 32 points.
Yeah.
Halfway through the second quarter. And they've got some really, really nice young players there.
They
but
do.
There was a big momentum swing came halfway through the second quarter, and then Freo knocked up 9 goals straight. And then of course, North Melbourne got going again, but I think they ended up losing by, 26 points?
But 26 points, really right there on the screen.
Yeah, they've got some nice young players, though. You got, young Sheasel, Wardlaw.
Yes.
Young McCurch, I really do like him. Zeri the Ruckman. I think they've got a very bright future. And it's not this year, but they're building it very, very nicely, I think.
Look, my take with them was always that they were a little bit down on personnel in the defensive half. They've really got a very good midfield, Mac. A very
haven't
good
they?
midfield. Probably lacking a bit of support for Lucky up forward, although the young lad, Dersma, looked all right playing cross half forward there. Look, I wouldn't be disappointed if I was a North fan. Yes, disappointed for the loss after being in a winning position, but I don't know whether they'll be on the bottom this year. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. No, that's it.
Speaking of being on the bottom, though, Hawthorn got walloped by Melbourne, 14,993 Melbourne to 5,838 Hawthorn. D's by 55.
Yeah, look, it was a no contest, really. Really wasn't a contest. And that was in spite of them losing May and Lever as well, which they're full-back and their centre half-back. And both those are doubtful for next week, so it'll be interesting to see how they go next week. But, look, the Hawks try to have this high possession game, like keep his off and keep the ball, and they did that, but every time they got in to where it counts where you've got to try and score, they couldn't do that. I mean, Petrarca was absolutely outstanding, and again, we talk about a class midfielder, the likes of which we've never had. And Sicily was very outstanding for the Hawks. I do like young Weddle for the Hawks, though. I think he's going to be a player. But
who?
Yeah, Hawthorn, young Weddle.
Oh yeah,
I think he's a player in the making. He'll get there. But yeah, Hawthorn, I think they're in for a pretty ordinary year, for me.
Well, yeah, they'd want to get a rattle on. I don't think their squad's quite up to it at this stage, but there we go. Next, we had a pretty entertaining game, really. The Swans by 30 points in the end, 19-17, 131 to Essendon, 15-11, 101. A little bit of spite in the game and a pretty serious collision, which I reckon Peter Wright should get at least 4 weeks for. What do you reckon, Mac?
Well, to me, it was firstly the game itself. It was the highlight of the weekend, I think. It was the best game to watch. It was an absolute ripper to watch, I thought. Brad Scott talks about the Essendon edge that they bring, and actually they are playing very physical football, but as you say, Wright's incident where they're trying to say he braced himself for the collision, but he ran through him, didn't he? He just kept going.
It was very similar to Power Peppers. Very similar to Power Peppers in the fact that he made a decision. He made a decision to collect the body. He could have avoided that collision easily. And, it should be a similar holiday to Power Peppers, I reckon. Look, but having said that, there's a lot to be said for playing a physical brand of football to galvanise a group, Mac. And I'm a big believer that... I'm a big believer that when you're developing a squad, playing a physical brand of football actually brings you together as a group of men. And, I would love to see a little bit of that vigour and physicality in the Crow squad because I really do think it actually, it gels a group of players.
Well, I agree with you. And this was a very fiery game, and Essendon really... sort of brought some of it on, but Sydney, any John Longmire team never backs down. They'll always have a crack back. That's right. For that reason, it was a good game physically to watch. It was a good game in terms of skill to watch as well. And I thought Essendon were very, very valiant in defeat, and that just to back up your particular point. And I thought Merritt was outstanding in the middle. He really got them going, and he backed his boys up, when the fights were on as well. But but in the end, when you got Heaney, you got Wilden, you got Warner, etc. Sydney is just one of the teams you have to think will be around. They'll certainly be in the finals, and they could well be in the grand final as well. I do really like their setup.
Macca, Sydney are a blueprint because when you have a look at their midfield and the transition of their midfield personnel over the last 3 years, you have a look at the combined games of the Sydney midfield, it's not that high. Longmire has entrusted entrusted the engine room to young players, and fair enough, he's got good players, they've got access to the academy and all that. I get all of that. But he has taken what he's got and he's entrusted them with the engine room. And you're going to get up and down performances at times from lads with inexperience, but it just shows if you actually trust a group of players and actually give them responsibility and let them play football, they'll reward you.
They will. And they have. And, as I said, their midfield's a powerful midfield. When you consider they've still got three major players out with injury at the moment that could play through the midfield.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So I really loved the game. It was a good game.
All power to them, and our coaching staff need to take a look at what the Swans are doing, because it's definitely working. The next game, we had the Doggies bring the Suns undone. Their first loss for the season. Western Bulldogs 18-7-115 to Gold Coast 10-7-67. Dogs by 48.
Yeah, part of the deal for the Crows was we wouldn't have to go down to Mars Stadium this year, and Gold Coast drew the short straw on that one. But do they have to go down in bloody August like we do in midwinter? No, sir. They Gold Coast. They go there when the sun's shining and everything's lovely, mate. I mean, it looked like a totally different place to that dump that we always go to in August. And that really pissed me off for a start. But having said that, and the Dogs were far too good for the Suns, and it was strange because the Dogs hadn't won a game up till now. Suns had won both their games so far, but the Dogs were far too good all around the ground, really. And Gold Coast, they gave a couple of yelps, but they were never going to win the game.
Yes.
Dogs by 48 points.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now, just a reminder for people in the studio audience, we've got 30 of them in the studio audience in Discord, Macca. If you're listening on YouTube and you actually want to come on and say g'day and have your say, pop into the Discord server. If you're not already a member, there's a link somewhere or other in our profiles somewhere. Pop into the live studio, stick your hand up and have a say. We've got 30 in there, Mac. 30 in there, including Pete from Here We Crow. I actually need to get him on at some point just to give him a hard time. But surely amongst that motley crew, we'll have some comments later on this evening. Let's move on, though. And I didn't watch this game, but the Power, comfortable in the end, 5 goals. 18-14-112 to Richmond 13-14-92.
Well, let's leave it at that because I didn't watch it either, Pete. So we'll go on to the next one.
Right. Right. And I don't know what's happening with the Giants game. I assume
I haven't
still
seen
winning.
that.
Let's have a look. Let's see if I can bring it up. Hang on. I don't know. Someone tell me. I don't know. Anyway, the Giants were comfortably in front, so we'll just assume they won. 19-42. Thanks, Gatesy, in the chat there. All right, let's have a look at the useless bloody ladder, which tells us, Macca, that GWS are on top with 12 points. Sydney Swans also on top with 12 points. Port Adelaide, Melbourne and Fremantle and Geelong and Carlton and Gold Coast all on 8 points, separated, of course, by percentage, although Melbourne and Gold Coast have played one extra game, of course. And then in the bottom half of the 8, where's my bloody... There it goes. St Kilda, Western Bulldogs, Essendon, Essendon, all on 4 points, and then there's a lot of teams after 2 rounds that are yet to open their account. Some notables: Brisbane, Adelaide, Richmond, Collingwood after 3 games, North, Hawthorn, and West Coast, of course. So, there's a few teams that are surprising. Collingwood and Brisbane obviously in the back half. St Kilda only just going, but a good win on the weekend, similar with Western Bulldogs. And, of course, the hapless Crows, Macca, the hapless Crows, also yet to open our account.
Yes. Sadly, yes.
So, look, let's get into the game, shall we? Because, gee whiz, it was Geelong at 14-12-96. Look, the score flattered us, I thought. 11-11-77, Cats by 19.
Yeah. Look, I want to start by saying one thing. Last week, just as we finished last week, I made the point that I hope that the Crows just hold the ink on the contract for next after and leave it till after a few games just to see what we're going to get. But they didn't. They signed the contract, and if that's what Nix is going to deliver, by God, we're in trouble. That was just absolute shite. It was absolute rubbish. I mean, we had more possessions and more usage of the ball, but it was absolutely hopeless. The forward structure was ridiculous. To start off with Pedler on a guy that we knew would kill him, because he always stars against us because we either leave him on his own or we put the wrong guy on him. There was an obvious person to put on him, and that was Keys. Keys always does what he's told. If he stays close to the man that he's supposed to.
I don't think Keys was the answer. Stewart is a tall player that takes marks. Why would you put Ben Keys on him?
Well, at least he would have contested because Stewart took 10 marks unopposed. I was
watching. I was bloody watching, Mac. I saw what happened. Do you know what I would have done? I would have actually put Max Michael Annie on him.
Well, I don't care who you put on him, but the guy we put on him was not the right guy.
I don't know why you put... I don't know what goes through your head, right? Not your head, but Matthew Nixon, the coaching crew's head. I don't know what goes through their head where they're looking at the whiteboard and they're looking at the magnets and they go, shit, Luke Pedler's the obvious choice here. Let's put him on Tom Stewart. I don't understand what makes them think that that's a solid option. Mick, we'll get to you shortly, mate.
I would say that somebody who had a mental deficiency who decided that was the right one. Seriously, that is so stupid. It is so stupid.
There were a few, so the way I look at Stewart is that he's an offensive player playing in the defensive half, right? He kickstarts all their attacking drive from half back. He directs traffic, and as was shown this morning in Wide World of Sports or Bloody Footy Show or whatever, and countless other football shows, he was left to roam. Matthew Nix said that we had someone on him in the first quarter. We didn't have anyone on him at all. We didn't have anyone on him for the whole game. He was allowed to roam. And what needed to happen when you've got an offensive player, irrespective of where he's playing, he could be playing in the middle, could be playing up forward, it doesn't matter. He was a key driver for their game. And what you do is exactly what we did with Dangerfield, which we shouldn't have, because we sacrificed Dawson in that matchup. You've got to put someone on him. You could have put Keane on him. You could have put Max Michael Annie on him. You could have even put Josh Worrell on him, Macca. Someone who's got the ability to play a defensive role, a negating role, and make him accountable in the air every time it comes down. And we put a midfielder on him.
And not even a tall midfielder.
No.
Bloody ridiculous.
So here's an idea. Stewart is their driving force. Here's an idea. Geordie Dawson's a bit out of touch, dropping marks and all the rest of it. Make Geordie Dawson accountable. Put Jordan on him for a half. Jordan's good in the air. Make him accountable. Bring him into the game. Take Stewart out. Like, anyone but Luke freaking Pedler. And then after Luke Pedler, it was just like, we just thought we'd go around him. Well, you didn't bloody make him accountable at all.
I know.
What the hell? What the hell, Macca? Honestly.
Well, this idiot that we signed up for the next 2 years, he's come out and said that the tactics were correct, but the players didn't execute them correctly.
Bullshit. That's the biggest bloody cop-out I have ever heard in my life. I'm sorry. And you mentioned about Nix's re-signing. If you actually listen to Tim Silver's during the conference, it was already done, Macca. It was already done. And they were just waiting for a moment, and they thought, first home game of the season, we'll do it now. And I'm sure they looked at the draw and thought, shit, we could be 0-5, so let's do it now before we're 0-5, because then we can't bloody do it. They decided a fair way out that Nix was going to be re-signed. I don't know why. I don't know what the trigger was to give him, like, if you're going to re-sign him after a loss in round one that we should have been more competitive, why wouldn't you re-sign him at the end of last season? What's the bloody difference? Why wouldn't you re-sign him during the off-season? What's the bloody difference? What was the bloody trigger between the end of last season and 0-1 after round one to actually sign him? There was no trigger, Mac.
Unless there's pictures with a goat or something like that, I can't understand. It makes no sense with me.
Firewalker in the chat mentions the SEN interview that Silvers did, where he said basically that they signed him up to take the pressure off him, to stop any noise. The bloke needs pressure. The bloke needs to perform under pressure. Every time he has been under pressure, he has failed. He's made stupid selection calls. He's made stupid in-game decisions. We've gone ultra defensive in our game plan when every other club has recognised that everyone's playing fast footy and all the rest of it, and we're chipping it down the line and we're kicking it to Tom Stewart, and our slow switching is... when we start switching, Mac, I get up, I go and make a cup of coffee, I have a chat with a neighbour over the fence, and when I come back, it's made it to the other side of the ground. That's how freaking slow we are. And I'm sure that the players don't want to play this way.
Unless it's been kicked to Smith, who'll stuff it up and it'll go down the other end for a goal.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so let's try and be... let's try and be a little bit considered about this. Let's start with selection, shall we? Let's start with selection. Yes. So, we dropped Lockie Scholl, James Borlace, who apparently... James Borlace was in on merit last week. Keane wasn't omitted because of his concussion. Keane was omitted because they felt that Borlace was the better person for the job last week. So, strike number one, because Borlace is not better than Keane, and if Keane was fit, he should have played.
Correct.
Last week. Lockie Scholl, I can kind of understand that, although he certainly wasn't our worst last week. Lockie Gallant, well, I mean, maybe, although Lockie Gallant wouldn't have been a bad matchup for Tommy Stewart either, Mac.
Well, he might be, but actually, the more you speak about, when you spoke about putting somebody like a Worrell on him, who is a dedicated defender, that does appeal more and more to me as you talk about it.
So anyway, they're the outs. The ins are bloody McHenry as a sub. Keane, Walker, who didn't look right. So, again, we've gone with a player that's 2/3 fit based on seniority. And yes, you want Tex to play if he's available, but my opinion is that he wasn't ready to play and we should have stuck with what we had. So, anyway.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Well, he didn't look fit to me, Mac. Did he look fit to you?
No, he was moving at about 90%, so he probably needed another week.
And then on top of the unfortunate issue with his father-in-law passing away, and we pass our condolences on, obviously. I'm not saying that his mind wasn't on the job, but he's certainly not had the greatest preparation. I would have given him the week off.
Probably would have been a good idea.
And then when you have a look at Geelong, they lost two very late. Mitch Duncan, Atkins, Tanner Bruin was out as well. So their midfield was bloody decimated. They brought in Brandon Parfitt into the midfield, but they were running on fumes in the midfield there.
I know. Actually, and our midfielders did okay, except for the usage of the ball going into the forward line.
Macca, you've segued into my next comment, which is our midfield is too one-dimensional.
Yep.
Too one-dimensional. They have to make there's not a person on the planet, and there's been some big calls made by some big name ex-players. Luke Hodge in particular was pretty scathing. Kane Corns has had a crack, and they're right. We are too one pace. We are too one dimensional. You cannot play Matt Crouch and Rory Laird in the same midfield. They've decided that Matt Crouch is our chief coal-faced midfielder, then I'm sorry, but Rory Laird has to find another job.
Well, he used to be a very good half-back flanker, so there's no reason why he couldn't go back there.
Well, we made the comment last week that Laird could probably go back and play a small defensive role. You know, and Lairdy's done an excellent job shoring up that position over the last few years. Absolutely. You know, but the simple fact is when they made the decision to resurrect Matt Crouch's career, and Crouch has made every post a winner in terms of what his skill set is, so you can't knock him at all. But having made that decision, they need to redeploy Rory Laird. Simple as that.
Yeah, you can't. I agree. When you've got Dawson, Laird, and Crouch, there's no speed there.
That's right, and it shows in the metres gained stats, Mac. You know, it just like it stands out like a hole in the face. Hole in the face. I don't know what the bloody saying is. You know what I'm talking about. It stands out.
The nose on your face, Fiend.
Look, Matt Crouch 287 metres gained, Rory Laird 202 metres gained. You know, and you know we got good metres gained from Geordie Dawson, but a lot of it was a bit ill-directed.
Yep.
You know, we have to be more dynamic. Every time Jake Soligo got a sniff, and I don't know how many CBAs, he only had a couple of CBAs, but I remember one in particular where he's hit the ball on the burst out of the middle, and he's just taken it forward and kicked it to the advantage of one of our forward line. And it's the only time during the course of the whole game that we got a clean centre break.
Yeah, that was a ripper, that one.
You know, we oh my God. We can't continue to keep our heads up our backsides about the makeup of our team. We've got dynamic players. Whenever Rankin's around the ball, how many CBAs did Rankin get?
What is that?
I think it's Mick. Mick, I'm just going to put you back to the room just for now because you've got a bit of feedback going. I'll bring you back in a minute, mate.
Yep. I'm not sure, but 3 they're saying in the chat.
Yeah, it was bugger all, right? How many CBAs did Joshua Shelley get?
Again, it would be not many.
How many did Luke Pedler have?
I don't think he had any, did he? Somewhere between 0 and 1 going by the crowd.
That's an indictment on our coaching staff. Honestly, that's an indictment on our coaching staff that those 3 lads, and Soligo I think had 3. So between Soligo, Rankin, Rochelle and Pedler, they had probably 5 CBAs for the whole match.
No, probably 7.
Well, bugger all anyway.
Yeah, well, it's bugger all. When you talk about over 4 players, it's definitely bugger all.
Yeah. So a lot of people knocking Sam Berry. I didn't think Sam Berry played terribly, and I'm not about dropping kids like Berry and Pedler off the back of a couple of bad games or a bad quarter here and there, because that's what got us into this mess in the first place, Macca. dropping kids when they have a rough game, and allowing senior players to have poor game after poor game after poor game and not get dropped is the reason why you and I are sitting here talking like this right now.
Yeah, I must admit I was very, very disappointed with Berry's game, Fiend.
You didn't watch closely enough. Because I watched it again, and particularly in the first half, Berry got a lot of inside ball, Mac.
Yeah, he only had 10 disposals for the game, so...
Don't matter. Most of those, I would imagine, would have been in the first half. He dropped away in the second half.
Yeah, I didn't like his game. I thought
he got fucking subbed.
He did, but I think rightfully he got subbed because he wasn't. He has played better than that, but it just wasn't his day.
Why would you sub Sam Berry and keep Brodie Smith on the ground, Macca?
Well, I wouldn't have had bloody Smith on the ground for a start.
No, but he was on the ground. So answer the question.
Well, because if you'd have to juggle your team around because McHenry would barely make a halfback flanker.
It doesn't matter because Brodie Smith was barely making a footballer. So we could have put freaking anyone there and it would have been an improvement. Why would you sub Sam Berry and leave Wayne Miller on the ground?
Well, Miller did some good things. Not enough, I agree with you. Not enough. No. But, to me, I thought Berry was a logical player to take off. And Smith, I wish he was just never on the ground at all.
Yeah, I would have taken Laird and put him at halfback. I would have subbed Smith, and I would have left Berry on.
That would be fair. That would be fair.
Yeah. What we do with our young players, Macca, is what has got us into this mess, right? Starting Saligo as a sub against Gold Coast, subbing Berry off halfway through or 10 minutes into the third, when he certainly wasn't the worst player on the ground. All right, you've got to let these kids learn, right? Meanwhile, Brodie Smith is kicking it off his knee out of bounds on the full, hasn't hit a target all season, is overrunning the ball. He cost us 3 goals, Brodie Smith. He cost us 3 goals.
I disagree. I reckon it was 4.
Well, maybe it was 4.
I reckon he cost us 4.
Yeah.
I thought he personally was more than the margin.
Yep. So why would you keep him on the ground?
Look, I would have actually, in hindsight, looking at what you're saying, moving Laird back there, I would have had, that probably would have made a lot of sense because he was bloody atrocious with every move that he was involved in. Just horrible, horrible. And if they don't drop him this week, then this side is not going to go anywhere. It's going to say, because he's a senior player, and he had an absolute shitter, and he hasn't played well so far this year at all anyhow. But we'll keep him there because he's in the senior, because we made him part of the big boy squad. Well, he shouldn't have been in that for a start, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to ever see him in the team again.
So Jack Homps on the new Crows Live after match YouTube show, Mac, which 8 hours in had 260 views. So come on, Shuts, maybe just bring the CrowCast on board. We'll do it for you. Was willing to give Brodie Smith an out. Was willing to say, well, he's a great player, and everyone has an off night and all this sort of stuff.
No, he's been having too many off nights for a long time now, Fiend. I mean, he had that was last year
agree.
As well. The decline was in last year, and now the decline's going faster than this year. And
I agree.
He is a weak spot. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, and look, I don't think I've been a Brodie Smith fan. I identified him a long way out as someone we should have traded because I felt like Brodie is someone who didn't perform under pressure, but you can't deny that he's been a great servant for the club, and it's sad. As it was watching a guy like Scott Thompson, for example, it's sad when you can see a player fall off the cliff like that. All right? And I feel really bad for Brodie that he had to endure that. And you could see it on his face after he shanked that ball out in the full. He was like gobsmacked. But he's panicking and his mind isn't clear. And to me, that is an indication that he's not up with the speed of the game, Macca. Right? He's not comfortable at the level anymore. So I think, I would like to see him. I'd actually like to see him retire, but that's not going to happen. But if they continue to play him, they're continuing to expose him in that frame of mind. And at the very least, what they owe him is a few weeks in the twos just to regain a little bit of confidence and a little bit of form. Because I would hate for them just to play him into the ground like they've done in the past with Scotty Thompson, Richie Douglas, those blokes.
Well, you take young Nankervis. He would have played far better than Smith did on the weekend. Seriously. Young Nankervis is a good young player in the making. And when he played last year, he played very well. And in my opinion, he would have done far, far better than Smith. Smith is a declining player, and he's never going to get better. And why he was put into the leadership group is just totally beyond me. It's totally beyond me. And because, as you said, he was on the decline last year, and now the decline's going even further.
Yeah. The other bloke that I can't believe is in our leadership group and on the park at the moment is Lockie Murphy. Now, no one disputes his passion and his effort and all the rest of it. But if we're going to play such a stodgy midfield, we need dynamic players on the outside. And, Macca, I still can't identify what Lockie Murphy's role is in our side. I can't identify, and I'm pretty sure that Lockie doesn't know either.
That's probably right. That's probably right.
What's his role?
I don't know. I don't even know what position he was playing because he wasn't getting the ball feed. So I don't know what he was supposed to do on the weekend because he didn't do anything.
Honestly, don't know either. He wasn't providing any run. He wasn't in at the contest. He wasn't playing up forward. I honestly don't know what he was doing. I don't know what his assignment was. And, again, another player that you can say what you like about the bloke, but if you're running out there and you don't really have a job and just running around like a bloody idiot, then you're going to have a bad game.
Well, I don't really know what to say because we're talking about Smith, we're talking about Murphy, and they're in the leadership group. I really swore then. They're in the leadership group. And what sort of inspiration is that to the rest of the players? And I'm just reading a comment that one of the bloody firewalkers put up there, which doesn't read very well in the sense that some of the senior players are missing meetings, etc., and some next lets it pass. I hope if that's true, then we've got no hope.
Well, this club has been notorious, and I'm not going to go into a rant about the club, but one thing that I will say is this club is notorious for being driven by the senior playing group. Notorious, Macca.
Yes, it has. Yeah,
it has been our biggest downfall. All right? And it's happening again, right? We've got a group of young players that are dead set keen to take this club forward, and slowly but surely they're having that enthusiasm sucked out of them because they continue to see senior players getting picked and dishing up performances like Darcy Fogarty, Brodie Smith, Wayne Miller, Lockie Murphy. Like, there are 4 players off the top of my head, that are senior players of the club and are not delivering, Macca.
No, and look, it's a very fair comment too. When you look at you look at some of the younger players, like you take Michelini, or Michaelani, whichever way you pronounce it, and Worrell, I mean, those guys bust their guts out, and they've played bugger all games by comparison, and they get a job done. And so, as I say, they embarrass some of these senior players. Royal Macaroni, they stand up they turn up every week and bust their guts, and they play well.
They do, and I would put a few others in that category as well, and yet we've got Wayne Miller is another one. I'm sick to death of Wayne Miller. I'm sick to death of him. Right? We recruit, if you think about these blokes, mate, Wayne Miller was selected as a midfielder, didn't make it as a midfielder. Yes, he's had an ACL, and that's sad, but he's 2 years back from an ACL now, and he is the sort of player that if you're going to play him off halfback, what you want from him is run and carry. You want run and carry from Wayne Miller. You want aggressive disposal. You want him to break up the play. You want him to break the lines. That's what a halfback in the modern game does. And all he bloody does is sit back off the pack, takes a little give, and chips it sideways. Not once have I seen him run and carry the ball.
No, but he certainly didn't do it on the weekend.
Brody Smith can't run and carry the ball. Brody Smith relies on his big bloody, duck hook of a kick because he hasn't got the pace anymore. He hasn't got the burst speed anymore to get it to break clear of any sort of congestion. So he doesn't give us any run and carry. Wayne Miller doesn't give us any run and carry. Chase Jones at the moment, I don't know whether he's 100% fit, but he's not giving us any run and carry. Our towards the back end of the year when we were playing well last year, a lot of our drive was coming off half back, and it was those players that were giving us a lot of drive. And it's not just run and carry, but they were actually using the ball aggressively. They were cutting the ball back into the corridor. They were hitting up those 45-degree angles. We were changing lane, we were shifting defences and all the rest of it. All I've seen for the last 2 weeks is freaking up and down the line. It's like kick to kick at training.
Absolutely, Fiend. And that you stole my thunder because that's where our next point was going to. About was why we were so good last year at bloody getting through teams' defences because we used to do, as you said, switch lanes, then cut across. As they start to move their zone back, come back across the other way, pick out somebody, then move it, etc. We had their defence running, not knowing which way to go, and then you'd see the opening and bang in it would go. But as you said, I've never seen, I reckon in the last couple of years, where all we do is just bang the ball 50 metres to a pack, where in 9 times out of 10 we don't get the ball, we just waste it.
We've only got one bloke that can take a mark occasionally, and that's Riley O'Brien. Burgess didn't do too bad a job, I didn't think, but he was often out of position. But Darcy Fogarty's not it. Tex Walker's not it. You hit those blokes up. You don't bomb it on their head. They're not effective with the high ball, right? You've got to actually spread the defence and shift them. And you see other teams doing it really effectively, where they'll just shift and shift and shift until they get an opening, and then through they go. And I don't understand how a coaching group at Adelaide don't look at the way Geelong played, because Geelong played exactly the same way last week against St Kilda, Mac. Exactly the same way. And they've been playing exactly the same way for the last 5 or 6 years. Right? They choke you out of the corridor. They slow you down so they can get players behind the ball. And Tom Stewart has a free rein. So it's just that. It's just that.
They are, and they're very professional at it. They do it so well. Well, they've been doing it for donkey's years because most of those players have been in that side and in that position for a number of years. So they do that is their real strength. They sort of choke you to death, and once they get through you, then that's when they score. But
it's also a weakness, Macca, because it's the only way that they play. So surely, after all this time, after all these years, where we've watched Geelong play the same way, time after time after time, and now they're lacking their bulldog in Joel Selwood. Patrick Dangerfield's a shadow of his former self. They didn't have Mitch Duncan, right? They had half a midfield, and yet they're still able to they just basically got us off the rebound time. If they weren't getting us out of the centre square, they were getting us off the rebound time and time and time again. The amount of ball, we had more inside 50s than them, we had more of the ball than them, and yet they were so much more efficient with the ball because they would just sit behind the ball, suck us into a long kick down the line, and then they'd just break.
It has to be that, Beam, because we won the clearances as well. We won every stat.
I know. We won every stat.
And yet, you know, we were quite pathetic. And it's exactly how you described it, that they actually get you to that situation where they keep building up that wall, and Stewart somehow is always left on his bloody own. I just can't work it out, but he is. And then they eventually wear you down, and then once they get through you, well, then they're like lightning. Once they got through, like they keep defending, and they just see a chink or an opening, and away they go. And we got caught. That's how they got their goals. Very quick movement.
The other thing that I'll say before I'll throw it open to the floor, and we've got Mick at least that wants to have a say, and if anyone else wants to have a say before we dive into the stats, please feel free to do so. The other thing that I'll say, Macca, is that as well as a game plan situation, my impression is that we are a lazy, one-pace side, because when you look down the ground, when they give you that down the ground view and we've got the ball at half-back or in the back pocket or whatever, there's no movement. There's no movement whatsoever. There is no one providing options. We are not a dynamic team on the ground. We seem to just run to certain positions and expect the ball to be put to us. We don't make position. And we're not very good at disposing the ball to the advantage of our teammates. We don't put the ball to grass. A classic one there were two in a row to Hawkins that Geelong did. One was that little hit-up kick to Hawkins at about 35 metres out. And then the next play was when they kicked it to him deep. And both times they put it in a spot where there was only one person that was going to get that ball, and that was Hawkins. Because they put the ball to grass to his advantage. We don't know how to do that.
Well, you're 100% right there, because a lot of people had a crack at Butts for his game, but in fairness to Butts, nobody can stop that. Nobody can stop that.
No, you can't do it. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. So, what do you think about this laziness on the ground, though, Mac? I spent some time watching it again today, and it felt to me like our players were not leading to position, and we weren't rotating like through the hit zone. So, you know, you'd lead up and then you're not going to get the kick, so you clear out of that space and let the next guy lead up, you know. We don't do that. We just sort of lope to positions, and we're very static and we're very one-paced. What's your opinion of that?
Well, no, I totally agree with you. In fact, it's impossible to disagree with you, because I don't think that they let one player make an option and they get covered, but then, I mean, there should be a multitude of options being presented. That's how you get the opposition confused, when there's multi choices. But that didn't happen. We were quite happy just to gather in a pack and let the ball be bombed there. Too often. And, you know, our forward line, when we used to cut teams to ribbons last year when we were really on, our forward line looked like it had space everywhere. That's because players would run to different positions so that they might not necessarily get the ball, but they'd make the opening for our other players to lead into that particular spot. But that didn't happen either. Exactly.
You hit the nail on the head, Macca. By leading aggressively, you're actually opening up the space behind you. And what we seem to do is half lead and then stay in that location instead of getting the hell out. We stay in that location and we clutter up that space. You know, if you lead to a spot, it should be 100% lead, and if it doesn't get on it, get the hell out of there. You know, because you've opened up space behind you.
Yep. That's the whole idea of it.
It's basic football.
Every player,
right?
every player should be going in the forward line, should be leading, not just the big boys. They just should be making space for the big boys. And if the big boys are being covered tightly, you might then be the one that they go to. It's just so obvious.
Yeah, yeah. And as Mason on the chat says, the funniest thing is if Fogg hadn't have missed one from 2 centimetres out, we still could have won the game. We still could have won the game. And that shows you that Geelong, it was like they were just sucker punching us, right? They weren't playing amazing football. They were just sucker punching us. It was like a big rope-a-dope. The game was a whole rope-a-dope, And if we'd actually remained composed and taken our chances and used the ball more effectively, we would have beaten them by 10 goals. Then they weren't that good. It's just that we were bloody woeful.
Now I want to talk about Pedler, because it's a carry on from where you are at that moment. Pedler, he had a shot for goal, which he should have kicked right at the beginning of the game. He should have kicked that goal.
Yep.
Three times after that thing, he had the ball from a potential scoring position, and he has kicked it at right angles to the bloody goal to nobody.
Yep.
I don't know what was going through his head, if anything was going through his head. It was because on those, I just can't believe what he did. I mean,
so here's my take on that, Macca. Pedler's a second-year AFL player that is currently struggling in front of goal, right? And it takes a bloke like Tex Walker or Matt Crouch or Rory Laird or Brodie Smith or Lockie Murphy, all these players in the leadership group, to get around Luke Pedler and say, the next time you have a clear shot at goal, don't even think twice about it. You have a shot for goal.
Yeah.
It's a lack of leadership. Yes, Peds is having a problem in front of goals at the moment, and he's developed this little bloody loopy thing, which is why he's kicking everything on the outside of his foot, because he's not dropping the ball straight down, because he's got that little loop going, Mac. I don't know whether you've noticed that. And it's crept into his game, it's particularly on his set shots, right?
Yes.
And he ends up kicking the ball on the outside of his foot all the time. But so
Every
that's a
time,
technique
yeah.
issue. That's a technique issue that any coach should be able to see, and any coach down at the club should be able to correct in about freaking 15 minutes, right? But he's obviously lost confidence as a result of that, and that's exactly what your leadership group is for. That's exactly what your senior players are for. Get around him, say, look, understand, doesn't matter. You get a shot for goal, you have the license to have a shot for goal. And if you kick 3 points, you kick 3 points. But have the shot for goal as a forward, that's your job. But I don't see any blokes getting around him. I don't see our leadership group having anyone with any sort of substance to get around a young player and give him some confidence.
Well, he certainly was very devoid of it, because the one that really stuck out like the proverbial dogs was the one where he, on the half-forward flank, Tex was all on his own, and he could have just popped it onto Tex's chest, and instead he's done this great big hook kick right across the face of goal. It went out of bounds, I think, on the opposite side of the ground.
Yeah.
And but he wasn't in shooting for goal. I don't know what he was doing.
But it doesn't, Macca, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because he's a kid, right? If Matt Crouch did that, or Rory Laird did that, then rightly you'd be into him. Luke Pedler, and I'm sorry, but I'm really big on this today, because I keep hearing, oh, bloody Pedler's no good, we got to drop him. Bloody Berry's no good, we got to drop him. Bloody blah, 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 this kid's no good, we got to drop him. It's exactly what got us into this mess in the first place. The club does not trust the kids. The supporters endorse the dropping of kids when they have a bad game, right? And so the club continues to do it. I want to see the club persevere with blokes like Luke Pedler and Harry Schoenberg when he's fit, and Jake Saligo and Josh Rochelle, and I want them to bring Luke Nankervis in, and I want them to give Zach Taylor a try, and I want them to give Billy Dowling a try, because they're in our next premiership team. They are in our next premiership team. Not freaking Rory Laird, not freaking Matt Crouch, not Brodie Smith. They're not in our next premiership team, right? So, yes, Luke Pedler made some mistakes. Yes, Sam Berry made some mistakes. I don't give a damn. I couldn't care less, right? I could not care less. Let them learn. Let them learn in the ones, not playing squibby football in the twos. The twos are for the Brodie Smiths of the world who are on their way out, who have lost all their confidence, and who don't deserve to be in the side. The young kids, you need to persevere with a Macca. Other clubs, they persevere with their kids. We don't. We drop them.
No, you are right. The future are those kids. So you are 100% right. Those, as you say, by the time we get flagged, I think Laird and Crouch might be well gone. If we play like we do now, nobody would have been a premiership. I'm really quite shattered that we re-signed next. To be honest, if this is going to be an example of his coaching, because I've never seen a coach, well, probably have, but not for many a long day have I seen a coach so badly.
I don't think I have Macca either, to be honest. I don't. There's not one decision that he made that and the way that we played the game and the way that we structured up and the selections that he made and all the rest of it. There's not one thing that he did that screamed to me premiership coach.
Correct, and he also did what I think is criminal. He was wrong in the first instance, but he blamed the players, and that to me is a no-no. A decent coach will say, I made an error, but he didn't. He blamed the players, and look, he was the one that got it wrong.
And look, we were fumbly. We didn't hit targets. We didn't move the ball quickly enough. Players are out of form for whatever reason. In game 2, they're out of form. But, so that, yes, we didn't execute 100% well. Below our knees, we were terrible, I thought. And too many times we let Geelong in just through fumbles or poor disposal. But the manner in which we structured up, the manner in which he asked them to play, because you can't tell me that he would say, go out and play fast footy, and then they'd produce that. That's like chalk and cheese, right? So I think you might be breaking up, actually, mate. Is it me? Is that better?
Yes, you.
How's that? Guys on the chat, is that better?
Are you breaking up?
How about now?
Worse.
Yep.
Better say a longer sentence.
I think Mac is the one breaking up.
I haven't done anything.
I think you're right now, Mackie. You were breaking up to me before. Anyway, let's move on. If I'm still breaking up, then in the chat, just let us know if one of the other of us is breaking up. I thought it was Macca actually, because I could see it in my meters. But anyway, all right. So, you can't say that Nix has come out and said to them, you play fast, aggressive football, and they've come out and said and thought, we're going to play chippy, right? That's too much of a disparity. So he's obviously told them to play this way, right? And the fact that he's told them to play this way, when everybody knows that the only way that you get through Geelong's grid is to run at them. You've got to run through the lines. They will sit back, and they'll sit back. They'll protect the corridor so that they have players along the centre square wing lines, correcting the corridor, protecting the corridor. They don't want people to go in the corridor, but you've got to be aggressive. You've got to take that 45. I wish I could put some footage up, but I'm just a bit afraid of getting copyright blocked at the moment. But there were so many times where you could see, particularly when they had the down the ground view, where a player just didn't get off the mark quick enough to be able to honour the 45. Right? There was room, and there were options at the 45, and they'd look over there, but they were they didn't come off the mark quick enough to actually get the ball there. And then they were just forced to either go back and around at a snail's pace or bomb it down the line. Surely you practice for that, Macca. Surely you do.
Well, you'd hope so, because you know you're going to come up against it. Particularly Geelong, as you say, they are actually the masters at controlling that centre square. As you say, they build the wall across the centre square, so you've got two options. You have to go around one side or the other. And knowing that you're going to have to do that, they can prepare for that as well. Whereas, as you say, you just have to do a short pass that way, then another one, quick one the other way. In other words, you've got to break up the pattern so you're not just kicking down the line, so that they know where you're kicking to all the time. And but we didn't do that. We used to last year.
When we're playing at our best, that was our signature, Macca.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but not this week.
All right, look, we've had a bit of a rant, so let's have a bit of a breather. Mick, if you want to come on, and anyone else, if you want to come on, we've got 30 odd people in the audience. We've got 100 odd people on YouTube and 100 odd on Twitter, which is fantastic. Thanks everyone for joining us, and I believe now that the YouTube chat is working properly, so you guys should be seeing the Discord chat feeding into the YouTube chat too, which is great. Mick, how the bloody hell are you?
You're good. Can you hear me now?
We can,
gotcha,
Mick, my boy.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know I was on earlier and you heard me choking on a biscuit.
That's what she said.
What kind of biscuit, mate? What kind of biscuit?
A cheese cracker, actually. I was having with my beer.
Cheese cracker.
That's okay. Sounds all right.
I just got called up because I know everyone's getting into Nix, and yes, he didn't do a very good job on the weekend. I'm not saying he did, but we lost a very influential assistant coach at the end of last year, who happened to be in the opposition box last night, the other night, and we replaced him with who?
Nobody.
And who is our entire assistant coach? Is there anyone in there? Burns, yes. He had a bit of a reputation when he came with us, like a pretty good reputation in coaching. Who else is in there? Who's helping? Who's helping Nix?
Big Nath.
Yeah, well, everyone knows my opinion on him. He shouldn't even be in the box. Who else?
Well, that's just it, mate, isn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, Nix isn't. Didn't do a very good job. But who's helping him? Who's advising him? Who's giving him other opinions?
Well,
3 potatoes and half a can of Coke is the only thing that's in that box with him.
Yeah.
I think Hinkley's the one with a can of Coke, isn't he?
Yeah, I think is it Coke or is it bloody Diet Coke or something with old Hinkley?
Coke Zero, I think. Look, what I'll say about that, Mick, it's not a bad point that you make, except that Geelong didn't do anything that Geelong's never done before. It's not as if they come up with something new.
Oh mate, I was disgusted and I was screaming at the TV through the whole thing. Like you were right. We had no movement. Everyone, the forward line was just standing still. And that didn't happen last year. But who's coaching the forwards? Our midfield, there's no connection. There's no connection. I
None.
wrote on, I think it was one of the Crows pages, like just shut your eyes and just keeping bombing it in the 50 boys. It'll work one day.
Yeah.
Because they weren't lowering their eyes. They weren't doing, the switching. They just didn't do a switch. It was just like, oh, yeah, there's someone at free out there. Oh, no, I'll just bomb it down the line.
It's not even a switch. It's just like a lazy little get out of jail free card kick behind you.
Yeah, but
or
I'm
kick
just
to the
saying,
side
there was
of
someone
you.
on the 45. There was someone on the TV screen. You could see someone was on the 45, open, free. But glanced across at him. Then they just kicked down the line.
Oh, mate, it drove me crazy.
Drove me
crazy.
I was screaming at the TV, and to have Buddy Stewart by himself just turning the game was pathetic. But what I'm saying is, who else? Yeah, Nick's had a shitter, but who had a good one? Who was advising him? Who was coming up with ideas? Because I don't think anyone's coming up with any ideas in that box of all. At the end of this year, we've signed Nix. We've got him for another 2. Okay, fine. But everybody else in that box has got to go and actually replace it with someone with a brain cell.
Well, if you think if you're going to sign a coach up for his 4th and 5th year, Mick, and look, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but if you're going to sign a coach up for his 4th or 5th year, then you would think that the coach pretty much has a handle on what's going on. Because what I'm hearing from you, and what I did think to myself the other day when I was watching, is something very similar. Like, Nix needs a senior assistant. Nix needs a bloody Dean Bailey or someone like that. Because he needs someone with experience to be able to mentor and bounce off. But we shouldn't be needing that from a 4-year coach. From a coach in his going for his 4th year. It shouldn't be required.
5th, but what I'm thinking is Nix is good with people, and he come there and he did get a shitter when he first walked into our club.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like we were rock bottom, and then to add everything else, he had the first 2 years he couldn't even train the full squad together because of COVID.
Yep.
Like he was given a shit sandwich, and then I don't know what he got for dessert, but it wasn't no better. With the COVID. So the first 2 years, you can just actually say, well, that was just a write-off, because what could he do? He couldn't even train the friggin' squad together. So he's really only coming into his 3rd year of actually trying to organise a game plan, and we could see his game plan last year. We could see it. Get the ball, congest the ball, congest the ground, get the ball, get it on the outside as quick as possible to a runner and just go.
Mm.
And it was working. I don't know what the hell happened over the pre-season.
Well, I think what's happened over the
intensity.
What's happened over the pre-season, Mick, what's happened over the pre-season is that they've decided that they needed to address the fact that we were getting scored on too much. And as a result, they've gone ultra-conservative.
On the defensive.
And they've forgotten that you actually have to kick goals to win.
Yeah. But even our defence isn't working that well, so I don't think they did that good a job on doing that on the pre-season. And as much as I hate to say it, you're right. We need to put Laird back. Because
why do you hate
Smith's
to say
got to go. Oh, because I like Lairdy as a midfielder.
Right. Okay.
But when Lairdy was a midfielder, I think he had more that I think he's better than Matt Crouch, but Matt Crouch can't play anywhere else, and we've signed him up for another 2 years. So now we've got 2 Matt Crouches in the midfield. We can't have 2. Lairdy's got to go back.
Can't.
Smith's got to get the hell out of there, and we've got to get some speed in that bloody midfield.
Yep.
And someone who can kick.
Yep.
It's just
well, unfortunately, the knock-on effect of having such a stodgy midfield is that it's making it very easy to sit on Geordie Dawson. And why the hell they wanted to put Jordan up against bloody Dangerfield head to head. I don't know. Like, let Jordan play Jordan's game, and no one's going to sit on Laird. No one's going to sit on Crouch. They're going to sit on the playmaker, and that's Dawson. So if you put Rankin in there with him, or you put Rochelle in there with him, or Saligo, or one of these dynamic runners, all of a sudden you got two headaches. But at the moment, with Dawson, Laird, and Crouch, there's only one headache for the opposition. It's easy.
I can't believe we're not playing Saligo in the midfield at least 50% of the time at the centre bounces.
Have you ever seen a more natural midfielder in your life?
Oh, he makes all the rest of our midfielders, even Dawson, he makes them look like they're standing still.
Yep.
So if we can see that, why can't they see that?
I got to say that Pedler and Rochelle are the same. Every time Rochelle goes into that centre bounce, something happens. Every time Luke Pedler gets into that CBA situation, something happens. You could rotate the three of them through that half-forward flank if you're worried about their tank, but have one of them in there at every bloody centre bounce. Pedler, Rochelle, Rankin, or Saligo.
Which you could do if you dropped Lairdy back and got Smith out the side.
Exactly. And that's what needs to happen.
That's what we need to do. Yeah. Until we do that, we're not serious.
Well, I agree. I agree with everything that's been said, but I'll throw this at you, Mick. What do you think they'll do?
You guys keep talking. I'm going to get Scotch.
I'd like to say yes.
Mick?
Yeah, my beer's out too. You took too long to put me on.
Will they do it?
Oh, I'd like to say yes. By the time they will do it, it'll be too late in the season. It'll probably be around after the buys, and we won't be able to make the 8 anyway. And then they'll think, oh, well, we'll just go back to development. That's when they'll do it. And then it'll be like, oh, shit, we should have done this at the beginning of the season. We are a very conservative club, and we have been for years. The only time we weren't a conservative club was when Malcolm Blight came in and kicked all the old codgers out and actually got us going and trusted the youth. We don't do that. We haven't done it since he went out. And it's frustrating as hell.
Blind pretty good see, though. What's that?
Just got up halfway through a podcast and poured a drink.
Well, Blind Freddie could see that Smith was a total embarrassment. He cost at least 4 goals.
He's cost us the last 2 games.
Yes, he has. Okay. He has. No fight from me. And he should not be in the side. I think, whether it's Laird back there or bring Nankervis in, because I think Nankervis is a good player in the making, and I thought he did very well when he played last year, and he.
So do I.
Only way he's going to develop.
I agree with you.
You have to play.
I agree with you 100% on Nankervis, but that still leaves us with the problem of what are we going to do with Laird?
Well, I don't know, but you can't. I agree. Maybe one of them just got to spend a lot of time on the pine and just revolve Crouch and Laird in and out there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a waste of the position.
There is room for Crouch and Laird to rotate. You could also use Laird as your key defensive small forward. I mean, we've had Paddy Parnell back doing that sort of a role. At the moment, we're quite tall down back because we've got Max Michaelani playing on the smalls more often than not. But you could probably push Michaelani up to a half-back flank and put Laird down in the back pocket. The key is to get Brodie Smith the hell out of there.
Yeah.
I agree.
No argument there. It's going to. I mean, that kick he did. Well, even last week when he was supposedly kicking out and just landed on the chest, straight on the chest of Humphreys. It's like, are you joking me? Like, And then he just totally shanked one again this last week. Like he's lost it. Like last year, as far as I'm concerned, he only kept his spot because of name. I think he had about 3 or 4 good games for the season. The rest were going between bog average and poor.
Yeah.
And then this year, you're right, mate, he's got no pace. He used to have pace. He used to come flying down and, kick a goal from 50. We haven't had one of those runs in probably 3 years.
No. Long time.
And as far as I'm concerned, Miller hasn't been playing well. But at least he still has got movement. Like there was even this last game, like he tried to a couple of times do his sidestep, and the rest of our side don't move. Like I don't know how many times I saw it. There was like one Crow player, and they were surrounded by 3, 4 Geelong players. And where's the rest of our side? And then the ball would get out to a Geelong player, and there wasn't a Crow player on the whole TV screen.
Agreed.
How does that happen?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a case of us getting sucked into a contest while some of the players drift off. That's how it happens. But
even in the contest, sometimes Macca, we're outnumbered.
It's because
and it still got on the outside, and we're outnumbered on the outside. Where were our players? Where were they?
Mick, that's where my observation is that I think we're a bit lazy as well. I think and again, you've got Laird and Crouch in that midfield. I think they're, Crouch I think has one job, and that's to be at the fall of the ball. At clearances and at stoppage and all the rest of it. He doesn't add a lot of... He's not a link-up player. He should be a link-up player. He should be putting himself in... Matt Crouch should be the guy that should be offering that 45, right? He should be a link-up player. He's only going to play the centre square, right? He hasn't got the legs or the engine or the pace to be all over the ground. He can play the centre square, but he needs to be offering up that 45. He needs to be breaking up the play. At the moment, Matt Crouch is not difficult to play against if you're an opponent, right? You know where he's going to be. Now, yes, he's fantastic at extracting the ball. Fantastic at extracting the ball. You can't argue that for a moment. But in general play, football isn't all about stoppages. And I'd love to know the stat of how many touches he gets in general play, because I don't think it'd be that high.
No. I think he'd get too many marks. I haven't checked it, but I think he'd get too many marks.
But only what you said there, Fiend, is only more reinforcements as to why there should be somebody with a heap of pace in the midfield, because Crouch is a good extractor and he generally handballs it out. And if he's got somebody with pace to give it to, it makes a total big difference. Whereas if he handballs it to Laird, well, it's just a waste of bloody time. He's just going out at a very slow pace. But
Macca, is that the modern game now? Are we able to carry someone who's basically like Tom Mitchell or Diesel Williams or one of those? I don't know whether the game allows for that anymore.
Well, you just got to see what's happened to McRae.
Yeah, exactly. Case in point.
Big, slow ball extractor. Is he getting a go? No, I think. Don't get me wrong. I don't rate Beveridge as a coach.
No, I don't.
At least he's got the balls to drop someone.
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I agree our structure isn't right, but it's so much. There's so many more things that are wrong, and for example, we've spoken about Smith, and we've spoken about Murphy, for example, with leadership players, and Bean spoke about not creating the right angles and use it and movement of the ball. And if all those things were done as they should be, we wouldn't even be talking about this. And that's the whole point. They are the key issues where we have the problems. Because we actually had a lot of possession of the ball. That wasn't the problem. We had the possession of the ball. What we did with the ball was atrocious.
Yeah.
That's
That was-
exactly right, Macca. It's mainly, even with all of our faults, even with our bog slow midfield, even with Brodie Smith giving away 4 goals, all the rest of it, if we lowered our eyes and hit a target in the forward 50, we still would have smashed them.
Yes, we would have. We would have. And I
Mick-
know our midfield is definitely not the ideal one, but yeah, we've got young Edwards, who I do think, but not necessarily this year, but next year is going to be a very good player. And we should be at the suggestions of trying Billy Dowling. I think and what's the other young lad's name?
Taylor.
Taylor.
Zach Taylor.
I mean, yeah, I think you don't bring them all in at once, but there should be games where you give them a try out just to see how they go, and you just might find yourself a good player.
Mick, thanks very much, mate, for your input.
Yeah. No problem. I'm going to go to bed anyway. I've got to start work at 5, so I'll let you go.
Well, don't have
all right, mate.
Don't have another
Good on
beer
you.
before then.
Yeah. Well, catch us. See ya.
See ya.
mate.
Look, Mac, we could rant on all night. We probably need to straighten up and stick to format, but I just want to acknowledge that we've got about 250 people tuned in live to us at the moment across YouTube, Twitter, and in Discord, so that's amazing. So thank you everyone who is supporting the cast. Don't forget, if you are watching us on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps us to push up in the algorithm. And if you're watching on Twitter and you're not a follower, go ahead and give us a follow. And if you're listening to us during the week on demand, particularly if you're listening on iTunes, go ahead and give us a review. Most of our reviews on iTunes are bad, Mac, because it seems that only the people who are having a whinge want to put a review up on iTunes. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Doesn't matter.
Look,
It's great that we've got so many people listening, and I hope that amongst them, and I think very likely amongst them will be somebody connected to the club in some way or other. And I would like them to have a listen to some of the things we've said. That they may not like what we've said, and I'm sure they won't like what we've said.
Well, I can't see Vardy
they
Magic tonight, so I don't know whether he's he's listening.
But it would be good if they'd hear what, and we're only repeating what, not just what we think. We are repeating what the average supporter thinks at the moment. The average supporter is shattered. They're absolutely shattered, because we had a team last year that was building up and looking like this year we would come out there and we would go right on with it and be a contender for the flag. And it seems that everything that we were doing right last year has been forgotten, and we've gone back and changed our game plan to something that's very, very ordinary. Now, we might be reading that wrongly, but that's how it reads to us. When
was the last time we trusted the kids, Mac? And you and I spoke about this extensively last year. The last time, what got us into this position of starting to contend last year and starting to be competitive last year was that first 6 or 7 game stretch at the beginning of the year where they were giving centre bounce attendances to the younger players, and we were playing an aggressive, fast brand of football. And as soon as we got into a position where we were a show for the finals, that's when they regressed and started playing Sloane, and then they picked Matty Crouch back up. And, we went back into this experienced sort of player mindset, and we've started off this season quite similarly, because obviously there's high expectations on the club. We feel like we're ready to contend for a final spot. And instead of trusting the lads that got us into this situation at the beginning of last year, they persist and persist and persist with players who are no longer going to give us what we need, and who we know what they're going to give us. It's no secret what Matt Crouch, Rory Laird, Brodie Smith, Wayne Miller are going to give us. It's no secret. They have been giving us the same for the last few years. We need to find out what the new kids can do.
I totally agree with you, Bean, and that's why I say I hope some of the clubs listening, because I'm just going to put a challenge out there to the coach himself. If you are serious, Nixie, that you are an AFL coach, you won't pick Smith this week. You cannot have a player who's put in 2 matches on the trot like that, and he's supposed to be a senior player. He's supposed to be a leader of the club, and he's played 2 of the most atrocious games I've ever seen a player of that alleged calibre play. You have to say you're not playing well enough to hold your spot and put in a kid like Mankervis in there to take these spots. If you don't do that, you're not a serious coach.
Look, there's more players than just Brodie Smith who fall into that category. Lockie Murphy. Thanks, Lockie. You reached 100 games, which is fantastic from the retail outlet. But we've got to move on from Lockie Murphy. Darcy Fogarty, Macca. Darcy Fogarty, I think, has been given enough opportunities to show us what he's got. He's shown us glimpses, but I want to see what Lockie Gallant can give us. I think that Lockie Gallant deserves a run of games at Darcy Fogarty's expense. Honestly. Lockie gives us a slightly different point of target. He can take a high mark. He'll go up in a pack. You know, he's young. Darcy Fogarty, to my mind, Mac, and, you know, I would, like most Crows fans, I would love to see Darcy take it by the scruff of the neck and to become our main forward, right? I would love it. But it's not happening. It's just not happening. For whatever reason, it's not happening, Macca.
Yeah, one guy in the chat says, I assume it's a guy, Fogarty is a complete fraud, and at the moment, he is. He is a player that's got a heap of natural talent. He's a beautiful kick, but a couple of times in the last game, he did put in their required effort to get the ball. And I think once he succeeded, other time I think he got caught. But it was very good effort. But there wasn't enough of that, unfortunately. And he does need a rocket up him. And if it doesn't perform, he should go back to the 2. And if you don't do that, Nixie, if you don't actually, when these players that you've been relying on and giving games to, and if they are not performing, if you don't drop them and give somebody in the 2s that's actually trying, then we're just going to go nowhere, because it just means you've got a free pass to play there and the team will just stay where it is.
Yeah. Fogarty is 24. Is he not a kid? Well, it's his, 6th season, Macca? And yes, big guys develop more slowly. I feel a bit for Darcy because I think Tex's resurgence has put a big dent in his development, because he was always going to be the Tex replacement, and he plays very similarly. He's a strong lead-up forward with a beautiful kick, right? But, and again, this might be on the coaches, I don't know, but with Tex in the side, he's got to play a different role, and he needs to understand that he's got to play a different role. And to my mind, they don't really have Tex and Darcy working well together. And my impression is it's because they're so similar, Mac, and we talked about this last week. You know, I'm sure that Fogarty doesn't run to his natural spots because Tex is there, right? But this is where it's on the coaching staff to be able to define a role for Fogarty, and either leading up the ground or getting him and Tex to work better in unison, to slingshot up and back, you know, that sort of stuff. But at the moment, Darcy just doesn't put himself in the right positions often enough, in my opinion. He's got all the tools. He could, I'd imagine that Darcy Fogarty, there's half a dozen sides that would love to have Darcy Fogarty in their forward line.
Yes.
All right? Love to. And I reckon we could get a very, very good pick for him on the trade table if we put him up. But the simple fact is that while Tex is on the park, Fogarty is not an effective player. And to my mind, while Tex is still playing, I think we need to give Lockie Gallant a run, because he's a different player to Tex. He offers us something different, particularly when we haven't got Thilthorpe. We need another marking option, right? I would like to see Lockie Gallant get rewarded, because every time I've seen Lockie play, he's like playing for his life, the poor kid, because it's the only opportunity he gets every 6-7 games or so. So I would be picking Lockie and say, look, you got half a dozen games. Don't panic. You got half a dozen games. Work your way into it. Get a feel for it and show us what you got. That's what I'd be doing.
Well, you're totally right about that. Gallant always has to play for his life every time he does get an opportunity, because he doesn't get very many on the trot, if any.
Never.
So it is very hard for a player like him to come in and in a situation where, you haven't been playing with these players, you've been playing with other players, and you come in and you're expected to perform it. If you really want to find out what Gallant's got, you've got to give him at least half a dozen games on the trot just to find out.
Otherwise, why have him on the list, Mac? Why is he there?
Yep, I agree.
It's the same with Murphy, Smith, Fogarty. I'm just about there with Miller as well. I've just about had enough of Wayne Miller. These are players, right, that other clubs put on the trade table, Mac, because they're good players on their day. Wayne Miller has played some excellent football for the Crows, but he's inconsistent. He's not quite what we need off half-back. Wayne Miller would probably get us a high second-round pick on the trade table. I think Darcy Fogarty would get us a high second-round pick on the trade table. Other clubs turn these players over, and it's not because they're bad players. It's just that they're not what we need. And I think one of the key differences between Adelaide and some other clubs is that we're not prepared to turn over our list. What we do is pick up young kids, don't play them, and then discard them. And pick up young kids, don't play them, and discard them. And the top part of the list, the senior players of the list, they stay there. And that's where we end up with this big bloody dip in our age profile, because we keep our older players, but we don't nurture our up-and-comers, and so they either get delisted or they bugger off. Notwithstanding the mistakes that we've made at the draft, which is another story, but I think we need to be prepared as a club. Well, that's the next conversation I'd like to have with you. But just to round this one off, I honestly think that we need to be far more prepared to knock the top off our list, because I think us more than any other club in the competition, we hang on to these players far too long.
Well, if you look at Port Adelaide, and over the years, they've actually traded off some pretty reasonable footballers. And they do that because they either want to get draft picks so that they can get valuable draft picks, which they don't necessarily go to the draft with. They'll actually then trade in a good player. Now, they've had their booms and busts with that as well. Sometimes that comes off and sometimes it doesn't. But they are better than us at that. They're better than us at list management. They're better than us at draft selection. And, our list management, it has improved, but it was a real joke there for a long, long time. And that's what we're actually bearing the brunt of that now, thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at Port's midfield, it's Butters and it's Horn Francis and it's who's the other lad? Rosie. 3-4 years ago, that wasn't their midfield, and they brought those kids in. Horn Francis is only a second or third year player. Rosie's in about his fifth year. Butters in his fifth year thereabouts. And they are being trusted. Like Port think they're in the premiership window, and they're trusting those lads with running the midfield. We wouldn't dream of doing that, Mac. We wouldn't dream of it.
No, we wouldn't. No.
So,
Butters could have easily been a Crows player, but we got a McHenry instead.
Well, let's talk about drafting, because I think it's about time that we talked about that seriously, because I was chatting on, I think it might have been on Discord today, and we were talking about Tom Power from North Melbourne. And Tom Power was my pick in that draft. We ended up taking Pedler. And you know that I'm a big fan of Luke Pedler. But the thing was that we took Luke Pedler far higher than we needed to. Luke Pedler was projected to be a third-round selection, right, because of his injuries, and he didn't make the under-18 state team. He didn't play in the All-Stars game, and he only just got invited to the Combine. So he was down the list a little bit. We could have picked up Tommy Power with our number 11 and still got Pedler with our Braden Cook pick, which was, 22 or something like that, 23, and got 2 midfielders. But because we pulled the trigger on those sorts of players too early, we end up doing ourselves a disservice. We did it with Miller, we did it with Fogarty, we even did it with Duday, right, where we pulled the trigger far earlier than anyone else was, and it's almost like we're so afraid of losing those little speculative picks that we forget about actually what we're trying to do, which is pick top-end talent.
Can't argue with me. It's all spot on.
You know, and I think we're at the point now where we've got a situation where we don't have a number 1 draft pick over the last 10 years that is currently playing in our midfield. You can't count Luke Pedler. You can't count Joshua Shelley because they don't get runs through the midfield very much. You can't count Rankin because he doesn't get much of a run through the midfield. We've got Laird, we've got Crouch, we've got Dawson. That's our mainstay.
I don't think we've drafted a midfield for 10 years, Pete.
Well, we've tried to, but like blokes like Gallucci and all the rest of it, and then we don't play them there anyway.
Yeah, I'm talking about like a pure midfielder that comes in there and performs and stays there. I don't think we've done that for 10 years.
No, well, Miller was supposed to be a midfielder, but Blind Freddie, see, when we drafted Miller, I'd watched him play for Centrals. He was not a midfielder's arsehole. He was exactly not what we needed. You know, he's a flashy player that could...
Sloane was 15 years ago.
And he was pick 60, Bobby. Or pick 33 or whatever. Like, he wasn't a first-round draft pick. That's what we're saying. First-round draft picks. Bona fide midfielders. Bona fide midfielders. We haven't picked one for ages. Dawson wasn't a first-round draft pick. Matt Crouch was, I think, we got him in a trade for pick 19, I think, maybe?
Yeah, that's something like that.
I think it was 19.
Trade with Gold Coast, wasn't it?
GWS, I think.
GWS, yeah, GWS.
Yeah. So anyway, look, we'll continue. But anyone in the Discord chat that wants to get in on this conversation, please put your hand up. We've got plenty of time left. It's only bloody 10:14. Macca, we got about 20 minutes left. We haven't even gone through the bloody stats yet. Do we really even want to go through the stats? Someone's saying, "Drag me in, Mike." You need to put your little virtual hand up. It's down the bottom there. I don't know who you are. Oh, there you go. Here we are. Why are people just able to come in here? More dots there. How are you, mate?
What shall we call you, mate?
No, where is he? That what?
That.
Can't hear you, mate. You're on mute or something. Oh dear.
Can't hear.
No, not happening. We'll leave you there just for a second. You see if you can work out your audio. In the meantime, so Hamish has been with us for a long, long time, Macca, and you know he's gone through some personal stuff and all the rest of it, and he's another one of these lovely blokes, right? But I think we need a fresh set of eyes in our recruiting department. I really do.
Well, was it Carlton who did that? They got rid of their one faithful old man as well, who who stuff everything up as well.
Well, I'm going to have to bugger you off because you're taking up space. But if you can get your audio sorted, we'll have you back on. Put your hand back up. In the meantime, we've got the GWS supporting Arab Crow. How you going, mate?
Yeah, I am GWS supporter now. Fuck the Crows. No, joking. No, that's it.
You're always the voice of reason, mate. What's going on?
Welcome, Arab.
No, it's just like I've been saying it for years now, and I've said this before. There's two things I want to say. One of them is, if we don't get fucking rid of Rashudo and that recruiting team, we're not going to win it. We're not going to make it to the finals. I guarantee you that as soon as they leave and we get like 2 years without them, we will win something and we will make it to the finals. We'll always be irrelevant because they have screwed up for the past, 15 years, it seems like? What have they done? They've done nothing. It's just them. It's them and their recruiting of coaches, their recruiting of players. They're recruiting like the only staff member they managed to get that's good is Burgess. And the only reason they managed to get Burgess is because he wanted to come to South Australia. They couldn't even get him if they wanted to actually recruit someone good. Like, this is what I'm saying. This is the biggest issue. It's not Matthew Nix. It's not even, I wouldn't even blame Bamberlo. It's just our recruitment department for the past, I don't know how many years. That needs to go.
Well,
what do you guys think of that?
We're all in agreement with that, actually, mate. So let's say we do that, but we still have to fix up what is on the field now, because that's going to take time.
No, I don't think it will take time. If we get the proper coach, like we've got a really good midfielder, I think, that's very underrated, and that's Rochelle. When he gets in there, when he gets up the ground, when he gets moving, things seem to happen. He's got a very good kick. He's got a very good speed and burst. He's just not getting played in the right position. He's getting underutilized.
He reads the ball very well in centre bounces. Guess my knock on Rash is around the ground. He's a bit lazy, but that's okay. I think if you actually gave him license and said, right, you're part of our midfield, I think he'd take it with both hands because that's the kind of bloke he is.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah, and the other thing is like Saligo. Like the last 3 minutes we put him in there, I think it was like one of the last plays in the midfield. It straight away went to the forward line. And if Fogarty could play properly or Tex was doing all right that night, he could have marked and we could have been like 7 points behind. Like, I don't get it. The thing that's really frustrating for me is the fact that, let's say Matthew Nix, right? He's played like 250 games for Sydney, and he's been coaching for I don't know how many years. But it's things like that are so obvious to us, and I'm like, you see things happen from a camera. How do you not see them when you have so much knowledge of the game? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, why are these players not being played there when every time they go in the midfield, things seem to happen? I don't understand it.
Arab, I've seen it in the corporate world where people become very stubborn about their own ideas. And they have a philosophy and they have a set of ideas that they think is the right way of going about it, and they become completely tunnel visioned about it, to the exception of anyone with any alternative ideas. And I feel like we've had multiple coaches that are like that, and I don't know whether... I wonder whether there's an environment at Adelaide that doesn't allow enough tension at that level. And by tension, I don't mean fisticuffs. Tension is often a good thing if you've got people questioning and offering alternative ideas and all the rest of it. I feel like we don't have that at Adelaide. I feel like we don't have that creative tension in the coach's box. You know, it's all, you've got to get on board. If you're not on board, then you're against the culture and you're negative and all the rest of it. I feel like that's the way Adelaide is. I don't think we allow for that creative tension.
Well, that may or may not be true, but we don't see any radical ideas that leads one to think things like that.
Very conservative.
And-
Very conservative.
But having worked in senior positions and being at the head of the triangle type of situation,
Stop bragging, mate.
no, it's not. That I wanted to make a point that I
Just
went
get
to
on
a
with it.
particular organisation where they were in this rut where they would not change their mind, and
Yeah.
I had to go to the board and just say, do I have the power just to tell these bastards that we are changing and it's going to be that way? They said, yes, you do. And I did that. A lot of people left, and so I replaced them with better people and turned it around completely and turned it into a very profitable organisation. But if I'd stayed doing it the same way that it would just kept losing money. And the thing is, what I see is a situation with the Crows at the moment where they've obviously they think the right plan and they're going to stick to it even though it's failing. That's the point I was trying to get at. If you've got a certain amount of resources at your disposal now, and it's a matter of how you use those resources. You've got limited resources. You only got what you've got now. And if you think that the people who are managing those resources aren't good enough, then you change them. If you think the resources aren't good enough, then you change them as well. So,
but what does it take though, Macca? Because I can relate to your work example because I've gone through something similar quite recently, and there's usually a trigger point, and sometimes it's an individual. Well, like you described yourself as an individual that went to the board and said, look, have I got license to do this? And they've given you that license and away you go. And other times it's external stakeholders. So for a company, it might be shareholders or, what have you.
And they'll demand it. Yeah, and they'll demand
exactly.
it. Yeah.
So we don't have a situation at the moment, I don't believe, where there's enough pressure on that organisation to foster this innovation, right? So we've got the last time we had any sort of change was that when, public opinion that was, in some respects driven by us, Mac, on the club that promoted an external review and, we changed this and we changed that and all the rest of it. And the club resisted that all the way down the line until it was impossible for them to resist any further because the weight of public opinion was just swelling and swelling and swelling, and you could see blokes like Rashudo and Chapman really resisting that review. Prior to that, there hasn't really been any what I would call tension at the club since Malcolm came in. Malcolm comes in, and he's that individual, right? He's that individual that demands success and demands perfection and wants to win. And so what he does is he pisses off all the old farts, promotes a bunch of young kids. We win 2 flags in 2.5 years of him being here. So
and Buck will do that.
So what my question is our board is very comfortable because of the way our constitution is at the moment. We're not member driven. We're, more or less owned by the AFL and all that sort of stuff. We have a supporter base that continues to turn up, right? We had 46,000 or something there on Friday night. We continue to turn up. We continue to buy merch. We continue to buy into the club. We're a 2-team town, so where does the pressure come from? To my way of thinking, the biggest problem with our club is that we're in a small market. We've got a lot of very, very rusted on fans who will barrack for the boys left, right and centre and don't say anything negative because you're against the boys and you're a shit supporter and all the rest of it. Whereas clubs in Melbourne, there's 12 clubs, they've got to be successful, right? Got to be successful. In Queensland, you've got the Gold Coast, they have to be successful. It's their mandate. GWS have to be successful. It's their mandate. I see Fremantle very similarly to Adelaide in that there's not enough pressure on that club to win a flag. I feel like there's not enough pressure on Adelaide, and I think Port Adelaide too, to a degree, to win a flag. where does that pressure, where does that trigger come from for Adelaide?
Yeah, I understand. Well, it always comes back to people. It always comes back to the resources you've got thing. It always comes back to having the right people managing the resources. And at the moment, Rahili showed that he was capable of managing those resources. We've lost to Rahili. We haven't replaced him, and we've got less skill managing those resources, and we're getting less results. So
Yeah, that's the thing that I was thinking of is like when you said that we need some different feel. I think we need like a certain coach with that with that charisma, where he doesn't
Phil Walsh.
mind like pushing for it. Like I think like what's happening right now with St Kilda, and when they got Ross Lyon back in there, he's changed quite a bit in just a year's time. They just, we need that kind of coach, and I feel like
look at the coaches that we've hired since Mal Blight. Neil Craig, who was such a company man that Stephen Trigg wanted to actually put him on the books. Brenton Sanderson, a first-time coach. Matthew Nix, a first-time coach. Phil Walsh, probably the only one that appeared to have any vision, right? We'll never know whether Phil would have been successful or not. But geez, I liked where he was going with it. But
so did I.
We don't even have the nuts to appoint a coach that is going to challenge us. There have been coaches. Even a bloke like Brad Scott. Brad Scott has played during the Brisbane Lions bloody three-peat. He knows how to win. Look how he's got Essendon playing. They're punching people up. They want to stand for something. What does Adelaide stand for?
Money.
Arab, I've got to let you go
money.
because there's a couple more other people here, but I appreciate your comments at all, and please don't go to
Thank you.
GWS, mate. We love you too
No,
much.
fuck GWS.
Good on you, Aaron.
Good on you, mate. All right, Mordot, let's see how you go this time, mate. Come in, and we're just a little bit more therapy. We just need a bit more therapy. How you going, mate?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
well
we
done,
got
mate.
you.
You've added a few more.
Okay,
You've got
cool.
those more dots, and you're with us now.
Okay, right. So, just one quick thing I wanted to bring up is Brodie Smith. I just have no words. I've never seen a player in the AFL actually avoiding the ball. Like, I'm not joking. Did you guys notice that too?
Yeah,
Like he was purposely avoiding the ball. It looked like he was purposely tripping himself up over his own feet to not get the ball. Like, where have you ever seen that? Ever? It was the most embarrassing performance I've ever seen of an AFL player. It was just, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless.
I feel bad for Brodie because he would have been embarrassed by that, and he's like, I would love nothing more than for Brodie.
But that's not a one-time performance, Fiend.
No. But I would love for Brodie to come out during the week and say, you know what, I'm cooked. But it won't happen.
Well, I don't know how many people know this, but Smith apologised to the group after that was
after the Suns game.
Yeah, after the Suns game, he apologised to the group for costing them the game, which he did. If he apologised for that game, I don't know what he should be doing for this game. I don't know. He should be letting them flog him naked or something like that. But, because I mean, seriously, he whatever he was against the Gold Coast, he was 10 times worse. And you're spot on, mate. It was a terrible, terrible performance. And any coach worth his salt would not pick him next week.
Yeah, of course. He just can't be picked. If he gets picked, I don't even think I'll turn on the game this week, because that is just throwing mediocrity in our face. Like,
you remember we ran Scotty Thompson for that long.
Yeah, but
Richie Douglas.
That's true. Yeah.
But I'm with you, mate.
Even those players were half decent. You just take a look at who we played in our team last week. We played Burgess. We played what's his name, Murphy. We played McHenry. Where are we going with this team?
That's right.
Like we know, like, as what you said, Fiend, it's so on point. We've seen what these guys will give us. So why are we continuing to play these players that don't give enough? They're not footballers. Why can't
Feel
the media?
frustration.
Why
Feel
can't
the
the media
frustration,
ask
mate.
these questions? No other club would have played Murphy for 100 games.
No,
He would have been lucky to get 10.
DMAC for 240.
Oh well,
We
don't
played
compare
DMAC for
Murphy to
240
DMAC.
for Christ's sakes.
DMAC was a much better player than these two.
Oh, he
Come
was.
on.
I was
He
going
was.
to say,
At least DMAC could run lines. That's what he was good at. He could run lines.
gonna-
Okay,
I
and
was
that's where
gonna
we.
make-
That's what we lack at the moment, man. Is we don't have anybody that can run lines.
Oh,
We don't have a good player that
100%.
can do that.
When was the last time we
Well,
saw
no.
someone run and carry with the ball? I can't remember.
Exactly.
Great. Bordots has raised a really great point here.
We've got to bring back DMAC. Bring him back.
He's on the money because those players that make that quick burst, and you remember in DMAC probably his last year, I think it was, he had a bloody good year, and because he did that. He actually probably knew he wasn't going to play again after that year. And he would burst through and he could get the ball in very, very quickly. And that's when you catch defenders off guard because they haven't got time to form a wall against you. So I'm not saying bring back DMAC. What I'm saying is, but we need that type of player that can, in the back lines that can actually do the burst. And what Fiend was saying before, he's disappointed with Miller because Miller should really be that player. But
and Chase Jones.
Well, Smith should be that player also, but the guy is the biggest soft cock I've ever seen in my life. Literally, when there's someone running towards him, he just kicks it. He's scared of contact. Ever since he got that concussion, he has been avoiding contact every single time. He is I don't want to repeat it again, but it's just it's so obvious, and it's just frustrating that the club just keeps putting him out there when clearly he's just doesn't have the confidence to play AFL football anymore. He's just collecting his paycheck, and that pisses me off.
Well,
mate, thank you very much for your contribution. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it because Mordots did call a spade, and he was also he was factually correct. And
he was.
I'm also very fearful when Sloane becomes available because
I can don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Can I just say one more thing, guys?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
There's a thing about this club, right? Wouldn't you hate to be a player that's being drafted to the Crows?
Oh shit!
Right, I think you guys have covered this before. They didn't play him and play the draftees in the correct positions that they should be drafted for, and then it's just
100%.
You'd hate to be drafted by the Crows. They don't give the new players opportunities. Yeah. Like Cook, how many games has Cook played? I know he hasn't played that well in the twos, but come on, he should have played more games. Fucking Murphy and McHenry in the team, how many times? Give the players with talent a chance.
Exactly. Come on.
Seriously, why can we all see it and no one else can, and these guys that get paid the big bucks can't see it?
That's the thing that I don't understand. It's like you read Twitter, you read bloody Big Footy, you read our Discord channel, everyone is saying the same thing. It's just like, are we all dumb? What are the coaches saying that we're not? Are we all stupid? We're not. We can't all be stupid. I know Mac is stupid at times, but we can't all be stupid.
It must be these players just train the house down, They love. It's always been the Adelaide FC mantra is they train the house down and then they get picked for game day. But then actually game day doesn't represent anything for these coaches. It's just what they do at training.
Agreed.
It's so obvious. It's just annoying. Anyway, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. It's thank God I don't live in Adelaide anymore. So it's not so tilting.
Well,
Mate,
more not,
good
I
on
must
you.
say, he calls a spade, and I think it was a very good, nice little work there, my boy.
Yeah,
Well
very
done.
good. Very good.
Thanks.
Thanks, mate.
Let's hope
Thanks.
we somehow win this week.
Thanks for
I hope we
tuning
do.
in, mate. I
I
appreciate
really
it.
hope we do, and I
Thank
hope
you,
Brody's
yes.
and I hope Brody's a spectator watching it.
Yes, I also do.
All right, one more. I think this is Tones. Is this Tones? Goodfella Productions, whoever the hell that is. You're muted, mate. Take yourself off mute. And you got a bit to live up to, because we've had a fair bit of passion from Arab. We've had a fair bit of passion from Mordot Sir. You're still on mute. So, Goodfella, take yourself off mute because we can't hear you. And while we're waiting for Goodfella to take himself off mute, it's the button down the bottom. 250 people listening tonight, Mac, across Discord and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook even.
Well, all I can say
just
about
have
that
to.
scene is if I was going to say if they've had a sheltered life, they've learnt some new words tonight.
No, look, I just have to pass on our gratitude for people tuning in. It's a Sunday night, end of a long weekend, or not a long weekend, but an end of a weekend, and so many passionate Crows people here, and I hope that this is a little bit cathartic for you. We've probably strayed a little bit off our normal format, Matt, because I haven't thrown any bloody stats up, and it's 10:37 already. We're going to have to close up in a minute. But we as Crow supporters, Macca, us as Crow supporters, you've got all these people that are tuning in at this time on a Sunday night, plus all the people that are going to listen to us during the week. We get probably, a couple of thousand people listening to us during the week. It's the club has been given such a golden opportunity. And it's such a privilege for the people that work for the club to have this entity that has captured so many people's imaginations and attentions and passions in South Australia. And it's the same for Port, right? But I can only speak for us. And when I see them be arrogant, and when I see them be yes men, and not challenging each other and not providing that environment where we can grow and develop and be cutting edge and be right at the forefront. I mean, they're letting us down. They're letting South Australian football heritage down. I mean, I know that all sounds very dramatic, but that's where we're all coming from, right? That's where we're all coming from. And they've been given this opportunity, Adam Kelly and Tim Silvers and Mark Rashudo and Matthew Nix and all the coaches and the playing staff. They've been given this opportunity to represent a club that represents the football passion of at least half, if not 2/3 of South Australia. And it really makes me sad that we're in this situation as a football club. It really does. We should have been a freaking powerhouse. Our heritage and what we stood for as a footballing state. We should have been a fucking powerhouse. And the fact is, we're a bunch of minnows, and right now we're a bloody laughingstock. And it really pisses me off.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, mate.
We've got Goodfella Productions with us.
Yeah.
What do we call you, mate? What do we call you?
Yeah, Nathan.
Nathan, how you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Hey, going back to this sort of like you were with the coaches and our transfers, recruiting and all that. And basically the last 2 weeks has been absolutely pathetic as we've all come to, fruition of vision of what we've seen. But what really got me with this team before anything else, and not so much the team but the club in general, is to give Nix 2 years on an extra deal when he's been here for 5, and the very first game he loses. Then the very first home game, on the back of that, we lose as well.
Yeah.
None of us can understand why he was reappointed, mate. It doesn't. It was a preset. They were just waiting for the right time to do it. It had already been a done deal.
Yeah.
If they were going to do it, why didn't they do it at the start of the bloody year before a ball had even been kicked?
Yeah, either do it then or leave it until after half time.
Or do what Port done, and force the question to kind of be asked and just turn around and say, we're not going to do anything till the end of the year.
Yep.
If they're so worried about why they need to keep hold of this coach.
Well, I 100% agree with that. I'm on record repeatedly that I wouldn't, at least mid-year, to see how we were travelling. And if we're travelling poorly, then you just don't renew it. If the guys taking us toward looking like we're going to be finalists, you say, yeah, but well done, we'll give you another couple of years. But let's say I'm not saying this is going to be the case, but let's say we're 0-10 after 10 games. Just imagine that. We've signed this guy up for 2 years. So I'm not saying we will be, but if we were in that situation, that would be the biggest laughing stock of the whole nation. And let's say it's not even that. Let's just say it's 3-7. It's still a laughable situation that we actually signed this bloke up. We should have sat back for at least the first 10 games and then signed him if he deserved it. At the moment,
here's the thing, Mac. Right? At least last year with Port, they had a bit of pressure around Gold Coast because Hinkley had some ties with Gold Coast and he's used that leverage before in his negotiations and all the rest of it. Name me a club that would snap up or poach Matthew Nix to be their next A grade coach.
He'd be lucky to get an assistant's job.
Well, there isn't one. So what was the freaking hurry in signing him up? Someone on the chat was saying, they heard that he wanted 3 and the club wanted to give him 2. Matthew Nix has no bloody leverage in this situation, right? He hasn't done anything.
He has nothing to
no
stand
leverage.
on. Yeah.
He's got no one knocking on the door.
He hasn't shown. Yeah, he hasn't shown anything of any improvement year on year. Like I said, he's been here for nearly 5 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be some kind of improvement by now.
Yeah.
I mean, Don Pike inherited the club after Phil Walsh, and how you were saying before, Fiend, that you'd like to see how Phil Walsh would have been. I think that grand final that we made, and I don't know if there's anyone else that could say anything against it. He made that grand final, yes, on the back of what that team obviously done for that year, but it's on the back of what Phil Walsh had already put in place.
We certainly started it. Certainly started it.
Right? So then and then he turns around and basically ruins his club. The exact year after getting into a grand final, he goes and ruins his club with this Queensland bloody crap, which smeared our name. So we go and get Matthew Nix because he was a part of the Bloods culture of Sydney. Then, okay, why, if you look at what John Longmire's doing and has done for the past, however long he's been there since Paul Roos, has he blooded all these young kids in to the Swans? And everyone's raving about them.
Exactly what we were saying earlier on.
Why is his background to the rest of us supporters and to the nation itself, other Crow supporters, put in the thing that, he's going to bring back the culture? It's like, well, yeah, right. He's sort of cleaned up our culture to an extent. But where's anything else that he's done?
Well,
actually, on the field.
This was always going to be the question. And we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, that, Matthew Nix has done an admirable job in bringing the club back together, getting the playing group together, all the rest of it. Can't fault him. He's got us back on track. We were in absolute rabble when Don Pike left, 100%, right? But the question was always going to be, has he got the chops to take us to the next level? And what I'm seeing so far is he most definitely hasn't. And as you rightly point out, Nathan, the issue with that is what was the thinking of the board of the club to suddenly, on the back of what we've seen so far, think, we need him for another 2. Under no pressure, no one knocking on the door. no results. What was the trigger for them to do that? It's just.
And I was chatting.
It's just crazy.
I was chatting to a fellow supporter. There tonight when I was doing the shopping there, and he goes, "Oh, I guess the rebuild's going to keep going." I'm like, "What rebuild? The rebuild by now should already be at least halfway through. The rebuild should already be halfway through."
I'm telling you right now, this list will turn over again before we win another flag. We're another 6 years away.
It may have to turn over 2 times before we win another flag.
Yep.
Because these young players and players like Phil Thorpe, right? He's trying to fit and find a place within the team, and Nick's is trying to fit a place where he fits within his system or whatever he wants to do. He's now got a year off. Then he's got a year to get back into the system, plus match fitness, plus everything else, and try and find his spot again.
Yep.
So is that another 2 years or something on him? So that's one player that we've already got 2 years to rebuild and restructure him. Like, how does Then Tex will leave probably next year or maybe the year after if they decide to draw out another year out of him, like they did with Rory, which was another fucking, pardon my French, waste of thing. You know, he can't play because he's still testing out his eyesight or something. I mean, he can't see. He's getting old. He can't run. What's he going to be able to do?
I don't understand why Rory Sloane hasn't retired, and I don't wish retirement on anyone. But he's had 6 eye surgeries. He's contemplating playing with goggles on. He's 340 years old. I mean, you've got a couple of kids, Rory. You've got a beautiful wife. You've got a fantastic post-football career ahead of you. Everyone loves you. Why in the hell do you need to keep playing football at this point?
And I'm glad you brought up Blighty's name before, because that was someone that would not have Tex here. We wouldn't have Rory. We probably wouldn't have Laird either, potentially.
Wouldn't have Crouch either, I don't think.
Both of them sort of fit into the Tony McGuinness role, where they've still got the kicking ability, but they got nothing else.
But I don't think either of them are shagging Fonzie's wife.
That's the other thing too. Yeah, I suppose. Forgot about that part.
Sorry, Mac.
That goes out.
Might have to edit that out for life. Allegedly. I'll have to edit that out. Shit, sorry. Too many scotches. Sorry, Graham.
But no, I mean, seriously, Blight would have ran through this team I mean, I still think that we missed a trick on not getting Nathan Bassett before he decided to join Port.
Yeah, I don't know. Another first year coach, Nathan. We got to have the guts. But other teams can get these bloody.
But he'd taken
coaches.
Nord. Sadly, he'd taken Nord to 2 premierships in a row. He's at least done it.
But they would draft cheats. They would draft cheats.
Yeah,
I
still would like to have given him a go.
Yeah,
I think Nathan Buckley's the one.
Yeah, I was going to say somebody like Buckley would be good.
I'd like to see what Buckley can do second time around.
I reckon if anything, he'll probably go back to Port.
I think, Buckley's had a lot to say about our squad and about the way we play and all the rest of it, and I think he was actually quite keen to get involved in Adelaide. I could be wrong, but we've seen Michael Voss mature as a coach after because these blokes. Buckley and Voss, they came straight out of playing. They had a bit of probably Messiah complex. They got handed the keys at their clubs and probably got taken down a peg or two. If you look at how Voss is going now with Carlton, he's a far more mature coach. I think Buckley's an excellent student of the game. Probably the biggest knock on Buckley was his expectations because he was such a professional. But I'd love to give Buckley a crack and to see what he could do with this list. I really do.
But now we've signed Nick's up, and we Burns was actually a secret advisor. So there is a spot there because Burns moved in.
Camporelli was looked at. Wasn't Camporelli looked at as well?
Well, there was Burns was extra. I mean, we had the 3 line coaches and we had Burns. Now,
Yeah.
but Burns, he's moved to the forward line. Surely somebody like Buckley would be a very good person to be that senior advisor to the coach, because I think he bloody needs it. He bloody needs it. He's shown us that he can't do it on his own.
Well, I think the ship sailed on that, Mac. If he needs a bloody senior assistant after 4 years on the Pine, then he's done. They should have, if that was the situation, and I think he could have done with a senior assistant when he first started. I think all first year coaches could do with a senior assistant when they first start, and I think it's just ego that makes them not take that position. But I think now I think it's too ingrained for him to take that thing on. And to be honest with you, I think Matthew Nicks is showing this year. And look, we're 2 games in. Things may change, right? This might be the wake-up call that Matty Nicks needs in order to have a rethink about how he's positioning this squad and this team and how he's getting them to play. And we might see a change over the next 3 to 4 weeks, Macca. And if we do, then that's a credit to Matthew for being strong enough to take other opinions and to look objectively at things. But if we continue to see the same things dished up over the next 5 to 6 weeks, okay, then what we're going to end up with is a stubborn coach that isn't going to change, is just going to take the whole work harder mantra and take learnings mantra and all that sort of shit, and we're not going to get anywhere. So I'm prepared to see how Matthew Nicks responds to the first 2 weeks with the next 3 or 4. But if we don't see any tangible differences in how we're playing, then I think you know what we're going to have for the next couple of years, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, my challenge to Nicks is this: you've got to do something about Smith, possibly as Murphy as well. If he picks both those 2 again this week, clean, we can say that we're in for a pretty poor season, I think, because
we've got 5 games until the showdown. We have Fremantle next week, followed by Melbourne, Carlton, Essendon, and then North Melbourne before the showdown. Now,
and North's in Tassie.
Pardon?
And North's in Tassie.
Yeah. Yep.
We could be
against Clarkson, who's coming back for his second game, second year coaching North.
Yeah. I said in the preseason. I said in the preseason preview that I was worried about our draw, and here we are. We could very easily be 0-6.
Yeah, but if you look back at the game that we just lost, and in both games we just lost, the coaching has been poor, the selection has been poor. Now I was very upset when Nicks came on TV and said that they had done the right thing, but the players let them down. Now, Nixie, just get your head out of your ass and have a look at the real world, and do the right thing, and accept that you made a mistake. You did. You made a big, huge mistake. And
Nathan,
to blame it on the players was disgusting.
They focused.
Nathan, last thought, mate, because we got to
defender.
Nathan, last thoughts, because we got to close this one down.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, no, but they focused that last game against Geelong around one player who was a defender. Yes, he's up there or whatever, but we focused our home game, first home game of the year, after you've just signed your coach for 2 years, around one player. And it wasn't just one plan; it was 2 plans, A and B.
And we still didn't get it right.
And and to me, my thoughts for this year, before knowing about this 2-year extension, was he had to at least make finals.
Yes.
Right now, with that 2-year extension, he has to make finals and at least win one, and possibly, if not, go and do what Carlton done last year and have a minor run in the fucking finals. Pardon my French.
We're a long way out of that, mate.
But
thanks, mate, for your thoughts. I'll move you back to the audience because we've got to close it up.
That's cool. Thank you.
See you, Nathan.
I appreciate your thoughts, mate.
No worries, thank you.
Good on you.
Cheers.
Oh, Macca. Bloody hell.
It's been a marathon, mate. But the one thing that I can say is that I don't think, no matter how people have presented it or how they've said it or what, the one thing I have to say, they've all said the same thing, that you can't deny it. And if the club is in denial, if they can't see that they coached very badly and they selected very badly, and the moves they made in the game were poor as well. So they've got to look at themselves in the eye and just say, I can do better, and they have to do better, and they have to pick the right people. They can't go with the same people again. There's got to be some changes. Otherwise, you're saying we accept mediocrity, and you can't. Can't accept mediocrity. So there has to be changes in the way they approach the game. There has to be changes in who they select, and then we just might win a game.
Mac, we're on track for the longest podcast ever, but I want to spend 1 or 2 minutes just talking about the Freo game before we finish up. So Freo next week over there, they showed in the second half against North Melbourne that their midfield, once they get on song, they can do some damage. I don't think we've got any injuries out of the game last week. Give me your ins and outs.
Certainly out. Smith is out, and Nankervis in for his spot. Murphy, I think I'd be looking at to be out. I'm not sure exactly who I'll be bringing in his spot. I'll have to have a look at. You got me on the spot. I'll have to look at to try and get a balance in the midfield, that we could actually bring in somebody that perhaps could play in there as well, or perhaps if we move Rochelle and spend more time in the midfield and then perhaps use them on a forward situation. Not sure about that, but I do think that they're my two targets that I would have to think should go. It should be both Smith for certain and Murphy. Yes, I think I would too.
Yeah, for me it's Smith, Murphy and McHenry. I'd be bringing in Nankervis, Taylor and one of either Dowling or the other lad, Edwards. I'd just be debuting them, Mac. I don't care whether it's early. Don't care.
But I hadn't finished. I said, but I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah. Oh, we've got to change that mix. Laird has got to go back to defence. We've got to change that around somewhat. And look, we can't just keep serving up the same as what we've already got. Freo over there on the back of a decent second half against North. They're going to be very difficult. We have been terrible away from home over the last couple of years. I can see us putting in a better effort, but I don't see us winning, mate, unfortunately.
We could win if we actually select the right players in the right team and play the right style of game. We could. I'm going to take a punt and say that I think the people above Nicks might have a little yarn with him about certain things. I hope so. And that we might make a few little changes, and I'll say we'll win.
All right, Macca, you've got you're going. It's not like you. You go with the odds usually. We haven't won an away game since 1947. But you reckon on the back of two poor losses, we're going to get up against Freo away on the hardest road trip, or one of the harder road trips going around.
Because if they haven't, if that coaching panel, etc., have not been smashed by the people above them, then the club's not worth a dollar. Because
look, they might have. They might have, but unfortunately, Pedler, Rochelle, Rankin are 20 games short of midfield experience to be able to take on Sarong and Co. That's a problem.
Well, I'm going to stick by what I said. And
okay.
Yep. Some said, no, I've only been drinking water, mate. I've only been tonight, I've only been drinking water.
All right. Well, look,
Not
an
wine.
epic crowcast tonight. I think we maxed out at about 250 listeners tonight, Macca, and viewers, which is just absolutely fantastic. Don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps us. Give us a like. Leave a comment. We got Scoot here. All right, Scoot, come on, real quick.
Good evening, all. Sorry it's so late. Hope you're all well.
Real quick.
Epic show. I don't think we will win this weekend, sadly. Massive changes need to happen. Pissed off. I've had enough.
Well, it has to change not only just in the personnel, but it has to change in the attitude. It has to change at the selection table, and then it has to change in the attitude after that. So, and it can be done if I think it. Hopefully, they put the pressure on the coaching panel. Hopefully, the coaching panel put the pressure on the players.
Absolutely.
And if it can be done, because I mean, basically, we showed last year that we have the ability to do it, and the reason that we haven't done it is because the coach has got it all wrong and so far. But
Absolutely.
if we make the appropriate corrections, I think we can win.
Absolutely. So looking forward to another Friday night game. I mean, honestly, if they had, it would be brilliant this weekend. Another ripper. What are you drinking tonight, fella? What are you drinking?
I'm on the Johnny Black.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
And
Mac, just before I go, what did you have for dinner?
I feel it state, mate.
Beautiful, mate. That's all I need to know.
Now, Scoot,
Good
do you
luck,
have
everyone.
anything to tell us about your pursuits, or is that still coming?
Toing and froing. I will let you know.
Very
Put
good.
the offer in for this. Not far away.
Very good. I'll kick you off,
Good.
but thanks for the cameo, mate.
Lovely
Good
to
night,
talk to you,
guys.
mate.
Good night.
See you, mate.
All right, we've got to close the thing now because I can see Macca starting to pass out. It's been 2.5 epic hours of catharsis, possibly the longest CrowCast we've ever done, Macca. But have appreciated everyone. Yeah, I've appreciated everyone that's come on. It's exactly what this podcast is about: interaction, getting people's thoughts, and the more the merrier. So thanks to all those that have come on, Mick and Arab and Mordot and Nathan and Scoot. Love your work. Thanks to everyone who's been watching us on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else, Mac. Thanks to everyone who's listening to us during the week on whatever podcast platform you'd like to think of. Macca, thanks for making it past your bedtime, because I know it's usually 10:30 and you're probably
2 o'clock, mate.
2 o'clock.
No, I'm at 2 o'clock. 2 a.m. Yeah. I'll get
Very
you
good.
up to 2 a.m.
Right. And look, apologies at the end. It's been a little bit negative, but by G, we're all just passionate Crow supporters, aren't we, Mac? And we just we just want it to work.
We do. We love the club and we want success. We don't want shit served up. That's
right. That's right. So with that said, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great week, all of you. And keep an eye out during the week for the goal kicking challenge when I can actually walk and kick and all the rest of it. We'll get that up, and I'll try and kick Burgess's 10-metre bloody gimme, and I'll even... Mac, I want your ruling before we go. When I do the goal kicking challenge, Tex was probably about 35 out when he kicked that left footer off the boundary line. Do I have to kick a left footer, or can I just kick a flat out right foot drop punt from that pocket?
Mate, at your age, if you can head it through, if you can. Any way you want to do it.
Any way I want to do it. All right. Because I may not have that much distance in my left anymore.
Any way you want.
All right, everyone. It's been a classic, an epic podcast. Thanks for sticking all the way through. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Good night, all. Thanks.